The White House is going to cartoonish new lengths to conceal just how old Joe Biden is. They've started having the White House staff walk as a sort of phalanx around him to prevent cameras from seeing just how slow he is as he walks towards Marine One. But they added a new wrinkle today. I'm not sure if it's a permanent process or what, but we'll find out more now with Monica Paige. She's a White House correspondent for One America News, and she joins us on the phone. Hello, Monica.
Hi, Vince. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you on the program. So tell us what, the normal method for the President of the United States to move to and from the helicopter, Marine One. What is that like for the reporters who are there?
So usually we get a daily guidance every single day of the president's movements throughout the day, where he's going, et cetera. And today we were told that we were going to line up at the doors at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time, where we will be watching him depart to North Carolina today. So we originally had that planned, but of course he made some unscheduled remarks regarding the protests that we're seeing on college campuses. So of course the departure was moved and delayed a little bit, but we were lined up. We were waiting for about 10 minutes outside. I can't give you a specific time range, probably around noonish. And then all of a sudden the press wranglers came out and they said, okay, pool reporters, videographers, cameramen, and then just basically said, okay, everybody else go. There's a specific order for whatever reason to get the cameras set up and to not get in the way of the other press reporters. Yeah. So as soon as we went through the doors, we were immediately on the South Lawn. We passed the Rose Garden, we get to the South Lawn, and I see Joe Biden boarding Marine One. He's already halfway up the stairs. And everyone's looking at each other like, wait a second, did we miss something here? What is going on? And the rest of the aides and staffers were already boarding Marine One as well. I guess, this is the new tactic now, which is the president leaves with his aides and staffers so that either he doesn't take questions or it makes him look more vigorous when he's walking with a group of people. But this was unlike anything that I've ever seen. This has never happened before. Usually he goes by himself.
So the idea, the whole point of the press being there, it seems like a combo, at least historically. One is to attempt to ask some questions of the President of the United States and see if he'll give some answers. Donald Trump, of course, famously did that all the time. The only frustrating feature of that particular form of press conference is the rotor of the helicopter in the background kind of drowning out some of the noise, but it is great in terms of access to the president. The other piece is just to document history. The president is leaving the White House, going to some event somewhere in the country, and reporters are present. What you're telling us is today, now all of a sudden, you don't even get to see the president cross the lawn. He's already aboard Marine One as you step out.
Correct. And he was already halfway up the stairs. He was already in the helicopter. Many people, many photographers, videographers didn't even get a shot of him. That's how far along across the South Lawn he was. So we were all very confused. And like you just mentioned, yeah, the press, we always try to shout a question at him. We hope that he comes and addresses the reporters, answers some of our questions. But we are oftentimes left with more questions than answers. And that's just the current theme of the Biden administration, even when we go into the press briefing rooms. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre always says the president's very clear, the president's very clear. Well, there's a reason why we're asking the question, because the president really has not been very clear. That's why we're asking the question in the first place.
Right.
So this is a common theme with this Biden administration, and I can't even tell you the last time he even took questions from the press outside.
Monica, we're talking to Monica Paige with One America News. First and foremost, how long have you been on the White House beat, Monica?
Oh, I'd say probably about 8 months now.
Okay, so over the 8 months, obviously one of the new things is that you have started to see White House staff members surround Joe Biden as they try and walk him across the South Lawn. What other things have you noticed during that time frame? How have things changed?
Well, things are getting a lot more concealed, I guess you could say. I mean, usually we see him walking across or shuffling across the South Lawn by himself. Just a couple of years ago, I was shown this video before I had the White House beat, and the president, this was probably March 11th of 2022, Joe Biden was seen jogging across the White House lawn and walking normally, like a normal everyday person.
Yeah.
But the decline is so severe and so significant at this point that he walks as if, he's like a wind-up doll, and he just goes one direction, looks in one direction, and when he approaches the press, the rare occasions that he does, he the movements are so robotic and so slow, like slow motion.
Yes.
And some of his responses really aren't that clear at all. And, Vince, I'm actually making a special for the network. It's going to be called Biden's Cognitive Crisis, where I'm going to highlight just where we went wrong here, just how the decline has been so steady, where it started. And this is definitely something that is new. I mean, Axios reported that now he's going with his aides and staffers to try and hide his old age, hide the way he walks, hide his stiffening gait. There's a reason that they're doing this, and this is definitely a tactic to cover up.
Well, another piece, I saw that he's now wearing running shoes instead of any kind of dress shoes to every event, I guess to give him more stability. And he doesn't have shoelaces. He has some sort of pull tie that it just cinches closed. So they have to come up with accommodations for him. I know that when it comes to the president, there's usually a lot of tight camera shots. So for those of us who see him at home on television, you don't get to see who all is around him and what other support he might have. Do you get the sense that they keep people close to him to keep him from falling at all? Do you see that?
I see that they walk very close to him, and I also see that his aides and staffers walk on the side of us, the press, so that the president will not, meander over to us. They'll be the ones in between, acting kind of as a buffer.
Right.
We rarely see the president by himself anymore, and there's a reason for that. And there's also a reason why the president never has anything on his schedule before 10 a.m., and there's a reason why the White House oftentimes calls a lid, which is an end to the day, around 5 p.m. every day, 4 or 5 p.m., because he is not his sharpest at that time. He is not working around the clock.
Yeah.
It's very concerning. People should be concerned.
So one of the things that we've heard is that that when it comes to Biden's schedule, it's almost always empty because they never know how prepared he will be to actually do an event. And so as a result, there are a lot of sudden events at the White House. Things will happen at a moment's notice that people like yourself, White House correspondents, will be notified seconds before it happens that, okay, Biden's doing something. And that's a product of the White House not knowing if he's cognitively with it. Is that your impression?
That is definitely an accurate impression. And what's really interesting is that, on Sunday evenings, we get the week ahead guidance. So usually he will have days where he'll be doing something like, say, a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, but nothing on the schedule Monday or Thursday. And we won't get a schedule for Thursday until maybe last minute, just like you mentioned. Maybe it's because he's going to be feeling up to it this week. And what's also interesting is that, unfortunately, One America News is not part of the White House press corps. They do not treat us very kindly. So usually the White House Press Association gets this guidance ahead of time, or they get notifications about the president or the administration way before we do. We are usually left in the dark regarding anything that the president is up to, or we'll just find out last minute, even later than everybody else. So it's a very interesting dynamic as far as how outlets like ours are treated, and also just how the White House is operating in general under the Biden administration. A lot of his staffers are not really jazzed about another Biden presidency. They don't think he can handle it because of what's going on right now. And honestly, like I mentioned, people should be concerned. It's not an age thing. It's a mental competency thing.
Monica Paige, again, White House correspondent over at One America News. What about your fellow colleagues in the White House press corps who are in that Brady press briefing room several times a week? Are they pleased with how all of this is going? Their lack of access to the President of the United States, zero clarity on anything that's going on, the repeated insistence from Karine Jean-Pierre that they're being clear, her inability to offer any sort of answers of value. I mean, does anyone get frustrated in that room, or are they kind of all happy with how things are going?
Well, that's a great question, Vince, and I can tell you with full confidence that people do get very frustrated, and it's quite amusing seeing the mainstream media get so frustrated amongst themselves. They get angry at not only the lack of information that comes from Karine Jean-Pierre's responses, but they also get a little upset over the fact that the press briefings never start on time. They usually start an hour late. So everyone, if you have something going on that day, you better block out a couple hours of your time just so you can attend a press briefing. And, you hear sometimes the back and forth between Karine Jean-Pierre and some of the other reporters. It's frustrating. And today on Marine One, Karine Jean-Pierre gave a press briefing, and, One of the reporters said the exact same thing that I said. We're asking these questions because the president has not been clear on pretty much anything. We don't really understand what he's trying to say half the time. But then also the context of what he's saying doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you about the specifics today. Biden gives this unusual address today. And it's unusual because he hasn't said anything publicly about all of the left-wing campus protests going on across the country, the occupations, the smashing their way into buildings, the flying of the Palestinian flag, displacing the American flag, all of this. He's kept his head down. The only thing we've really gotten out of the White House up until today was a series of written statements that barely received any attention anywhere. What is happening at the White House? What do you make of Biden's decision today to finally say anything?
To be honest with you, I really don't think it's genuine at all. I feel like it was just a lot of mixed messaging. There was not a strong or firm stance on anything. You can tell it's scripted when he says, "Let me be clear," and "look." Like, those are the keyword terms or buzzwords that that this is pre-written for him. He goes around with his speechwriter basically every time he travels. And it's a shame because this is a little too late. President Trump gave a firm stance in recent days, and he actually called on President Biden to say something. You were the leader of the free world. You need to say something. And this is a little too late. And just to give a short 3-minute speech on what's happening, this is not only an attack on Israel and the Jewish people. This is an attack on our nation. This is an attack on American values. And this is a war on the West. It's very clear. It's clear as day. And the president made this about the First Amendment. He made this about free speech. He didn't make this about terrorism or calling this out for what it is. And I think that speaks volumes.
All right. Yeah, I think you're right. Monica Paige, White House correspondent, One America News, with a front row seat to all the chaos. Thank you very much, Monica. Good to talk to you today.